Hello everyone, and welcome. Today we are examining the life of Aizen Gyoro Puyi, the last emperor of China, and how over time he became a global symbol of collaboration, failure, and betrayal, despite exercising remarkably little real power at any stage of his life. In 1908, Puyi was living a quiet, aristocratic childhood in Beijing when imperial officials arrived unannounced. According to later accounts, the child was carried into the Forbidden City, crying, confused, and frightened. There he was presented to the Empress Dowager Cici, who lay dying. She reportedly lifted him onto her lap, examined him briefly, and declared that he would become emperor. Within hours, Puyi's life had been permanently sealed. He would later recall screaming for his nurse as palace doors closed on him, a moment that would define his relationship with power for the rest of his life. And although emperor in name, Puyi lived under strict ceremonial control. His daily routine was rigid. Scripted audiences, ritualized meals, absolute separation from ordinary life. He was not allowed to leave the palace freely, and his education was deliberately narrow. When the Qing dynasty collapsed in 1912, Puyi abdicated, but remained inside the Forbidden City under special arrangements. China outside descended into revolution and warlordism. Puyi remained inside a palace that increasingly felt like a museum, preserved but irrelevant. On July 1st, 1917, a royalist warlord, loyal to the already gone imperial monarchy, Zhang Zun, attempted to restore Puyi as the Emperor of China once again. Zhang's troops in Beijing were smaller and more outdated compared to the forces of Duan Quri, having the more advanced and modern army with proper artillery and control of key rail lines. On July 12, 1917, after the attempted restoration, Zhang would flee to the Dutch legation, seeking refuge from the approaching soldiers of the Republic. After the failed restoration, Puyi was monitored very closely in the Forbidden City by Republican forces up until 1924, where a warlord coup abruptly ended Puyi's protected status after. He was forcibly expelled from the Forbidden City. This moment was critical. For the first time, Puyi was exposed. Homeless in political terms and dependent on foreign protection. He took refuge first in a Japanese legation in Beijing, and from that point onward, Japanese intelligence began to view him not as a ruler, but as an asset. Puyi did not openly march north to claim a throne. His removal was discreet. In 1931, following Japan's occupation of Manchuria, Puyi was smuggled out of Tianjin under Japanese supervision. He traveled in secrecy, avoiding public attention, and crossed into Manchuria under armed escort. However, this was not a triumphant return. It was a greatly managed transfer of a political symbol. And in 1932, Japan announced the creation of Manchukuo, and Puyi was installed as its head of state. Although styled as chief executive and later emperor, Puyi's daily life was tightly controlled. He lived in guarded residences, surrounded by Japanese officers, handlers, translators, informants, and spies. His schedule was monitored, his correspondence was filtered, and his conversations were observed. Japanese advisors drafted decrees for him to sign, and he was discouraged from independent thought or initiative. Even his personal habits, clothing, ceremonies, and diet were influenced or dictated. Puyi later wrote that he was constantly aware that everything he did was being reported to the Japanese. To the outside world, Puyi appeared to rule, but in reality, Manchukuo's military, police, economy, foreign policy, they were all entirely under Japanese command, and when Puyi later attempted to resist, even symbolically, he was ignored or overruled. His role was to legitimize occupation, not direct it. Yet after the war, this distinction would vanish from popular memory. When Japan collapsed in 1945, Puyi attempted to flee but was captured by Soviet forces. By the time he was handed to Communist China, his image was already fixed. He was no longer seen as a child emperor, a displaced figurehead, a manipulated symbol, but as a collaborator, full stop. Puyi spent years in a re-education camp in Communist China, publicly confessing his failings, and later brainwashed to do so. He was later released, working as an ordinary citizen. The former emperor became proof that old traditions had failed, collaboration led nowhere, and ideology had triumphed. Abroad, however, the nuance remained absent. Puyi did not choose the throne. He did not command armies. He did not design occupation. He lived his life moving between blocked rooms, guarded trains, and supervised palaces. History often demanded responsibility, but it rarely pauses to look who actually had control. And so the last emperor of China became one of the 20th century's most enduring scapegoats. Thank you for watching.